have been killed. Joining me now is former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren. Ambassador Oren, thank you for joining me. I know we have a slight delay, so I'll just get right to the question. The first is, do you think that Israel is likely to send negotiators back to Cairo? We are getting word that they may have succeeded in destroying all known tunnels in Gaza. Do you think there's new impetus for broader ceasefire?
Good to be with you, Alex. Thank you. If the reports are indeed true that Palestinian negotiators have accepted the Egyptian ceasefire, this is basically the same ceasefire that was offered almost 4 weeks ago by the Egyptians. It's a ceasefire in which Hamas can claim no gains by having initiated a war. It's not going to get the border crossings opened for Hamas. It's not going to get salaries for its employees. It's not going to get a lifting of Israel's maritime blockade. No gains from this war. If that is the conditions of the ceasefire, then I would imagine that Israel would accept it, because Israel has been willing to accept it repeatedly over the course of the last 4 weeks. The question remains whether the Palestinians then will be able to keep the ceasefire. They've had several ceasefires that Hamas has requested and then violated. And tonight, as you mentioned, Israeli forces reopened fire on Gaza, but that was after Hamas fired 100 rockets into Israel.
Let's talk a little bit about the asymmetry here, because there has been much discussed. Prime Minister Netanyahu said today that Israel has, quote, no intention of attacking the residents of Gaza. Given that statement, I wonder what you think the intent is behind airstrikes on refugee camps, as we have had in the last 72 hours.
Well, Israel indeed has no intention of attacking the civilians of Gaza. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not speaking for the government anymore. I'm just a citizen of the state of Israel. But I view myself and my family as every bit a victim of Hamas as Palestinians and their families. Hamas started this war. It fired now well over 3,000 rockets into Israel, and as well as dug tunnels under the border with the sole goal of attacking Israeli farms and communities, killing women and children. So there's no question of the justice of this struggle. Israel's fighting against an enemy which has dug in behind the civilian population on purpose, is using them as human shields, in many cases preventing them from running away because it wants Israel to create casualties so that Israel will be condemned internationally and denied legitimacy. It's part of Hamas's very deep strategy, and they repeat it every few years. It's not the first time we've encountered it. So when the Prime Minister says Israel has no intention of striking civilians, he means it. Hamas wants to get Israel to strike civilians. Israel is doing its utmost to try to avoid it. But in any type of warfare where you're dealing with a terrorist group or any enemy dug in behind a civilian population, civilian casualties happened. On D-Day in 1944, American Air Force killed upwards of 20,000 Frenchmen because they were dug in around the Germans. So what happens in war, it is tragic. I view both Palestinians victims and Israeli victims as victims of Hamas.
Let me ask you, let me follow up on that. If the strategy of killing civilians is part of Hamas's strategy, then what do you say to those in the West, not actually Arab leaders who have actually been quite silently in support of Israel, but folks like the French, Laurent Fabius, who said Israel's right to security does not justify the killing of children and the massacre of civilians, or even Samantha Power, the U.S. UN ambassador, who called the UN shelter attack this weekend, quote, horrifying. Have they just been duped into following along with Hamas's strategy?
Well, Hamas does uses military tactics to achieve a media strategy. What does it mean? They fire rockets at us. They know the rockets can't destroy the state of Israel. I'm sitting with Tel Aviv behind me. We've had hundreds of rockets fired at us. You see Tel Aviv is still standing and bustling. But what they can do is get Israel to fire back, and using civilians as human shields, then create casualties. That translates into the condemnations that you just quoted, and then that becomes diplomatic pressure on Israel to agree to a ceasefire where Hamas can both claim victory and use the ceasefire to build up a bigger rocket arsenal and to open fire again in another year or two. That's the way it works. So that's the strategy, is to deny Israel legitimacy. It's to deny Israel the ability to defend itself, and that's how Hamas plans to destroy us. When foreign leaders cooperate with us, we cooperate with that strategy. It's very frustrating for us. Certainly when the United States or the French or the British killed numbers of Afghani civilians by accident, and it was was tragic, Israel did not come out publicly and say, we are appalled by this and we demand immediate investigation. The United States investigates this. We understand that fighting against a terrorist enemy that is hidden among a civilian population is very costly, and actually it is the people who bear the moral responsibility for the death of those civilians are the terrorists, not the United States, not France, and not Israel.
Ambassador, let me ask you just one more question before we let you go. In terms of the metric by which Prime Minister Netanyahu would call this a success, is it, we are, as we said at the beginning of this segment, getting word that all the tunnels in Gaza may have been destroyed. Will that signal the end? Should it? Has Israel been clear enough on how this conflict comes to an end?
Well, I think the tunnels were the goal of the ground operation, a big part of the ground operation. If Hamas continues to fire 100 rockets at us per day, clearly the operation can't be over, and Israel's going to have to take measures to defend itself. I think what you could say would be a victory is if Hamas accepts an unconditional ceasefire, where all of the achievements which it set out as its goals in starting this war, when none of those achievements are met, and Hamas just accepts the ceasefire, then that would be a victory. You know, we're in the 21st century. There are no more moments, you know, like the top of Hiroshima and the Marines raising the flag there. Middle Eastern and general wars of the 21st century don't have clear conclusions, and victories are very relative. That would be a relative victory for Israel for the time being. A greater victory would be the demilitarization of Gaza. No more missiles. Hamas without missiles is not the same Hamas.
Ambassador Michael Oren, thank you for your time and thoughts.